I am going to move us into our first session. Our first session is a keynote talk. If you have never heard Tawana talk, you are in for an amazing treat. Tawana is actually our Vice President of Curriculum and Instruction here at Mind Research Institute. She has over 20 years of experience into not just designing curriculum and designing activities, but as a teacher, as an administrator. She is a leader in professional development. She's the leader in STEAM. She's a leader in curriculum development, but she's really becoming quite known for her passion in equity and access and the way that she talks about all of our students and the mathematical minds of all of our students. And so with that, I'm going to give this to Tawana, let her open her session, and then I will see you again at the end of the day when we wrap up. So please have a wonderful day. Stay with us because the keynote at the end, you're going to be blown away by Tawana, and it just keeps getting better and better as the day goes on. So please stay with us, and then we'll be back for Nina Wu at the end of the day. So here we go, Tawana.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I am really excited to be here with you all today. As Deb said, my name's Tawana Young, and I have the pleasure of leading our curriculum and instruction team and also kicking off this wonderful conference. So I want to thank all of you for joining us for this time of learning together. We're really excited to have you with us. And I also want to thank everyone who did so much work in putting this conference together and all of the presenters. You are all going to have just an amazing experience today. So my talk today, we're going to need a few things. We're going to use a few tools that to help us today. I like to make my talks interactive. So you're going to need tools. You'll need to make sure that your chat is set to everybody. You'll need to locate those reaction emojis, and then you're going to need the photo app on your phone. And so those are the three tools that we're going to be used today. I'm also going to put my, because I forgot to put it on the slide, I'm putting my Twitter hashtag in the chat in case anybody wants to tweet things out and tag me, or if you want to follow me on Twitter. I'm always looking for more followers. I'm always trying to outdo my husband in the who has more followers range. So anybody that can help me out, greatly appreciated. So we're going to get started, and I want to start with a challenge. So I've been talking a lot this year about something called a BHAG, and a BHAG is a big, hairy, audacious goal. And this is BHAG. So as you go through today and you hear what I have to say, you hear what Nina has to say at the end of the day, you hear what all the presenters have to say, I want you to think about what's going to be that big, hairy, audacious goal that you take with you into the 2022-2023 school year. And the thing about a BHAG, it has to be a goal that's so big that it almost scares you. So you want something that's going to push you, something that's going to be something that you haven't tried before. You want something that's going to be so good, but so big that it almost scares you. So I'm going to ask you the question again at the end of my session, but I want you to think about that so that as you go through the day, you can think about what your BHAG is. All right. So I want to get started with my title. So the title of my talk today is Too Brave to Fail. It's all about revising our schemas around mathematics. And I want to focus on the words in bold, too brave to fail. And I want you to think about what that means. And so this is the first chance we're going to use our tools. Go ahead and get out your phone and you can scan that QR code. It's going to take you to a Mentimeter. I've also put a link in the chat in case you don't have your phone with you. And I want you to think about, what does it mean in a school setting? Like, what does this mean to you as you think about school and the kids that you have in school? What does too brave to fail mean? So if you don't have a phone, go ahead and use the link that I put in the chat for the Mentimeter. And so I'll just give you a few minutes to do that. And I do want to give a caveat about time. So if you're like me, I always gave my kids time. I would say you have 20 minutes, you have 5 minutes, you have 10 minutes, and the time was never real. And so every time I gave time, they would say, are these real minutes or Miss Young minutes? So our time together today is all Miss Young minutes. It's completely made up. If I say you have 5 minutes, it might be 2 minutes, it might be 30 seconds. You never know. It keeps us all on our toes. So I just give you a few more seconds to do that. And while you're doing that, we're going to look at it in a minute. I want to break this down a little bit, this title, because I absolutely love this title. I did not come up with this title. I'm not going to take the credit for that, but I love this title. And so I want to break it down a little bit. The word brave typically invokes some type of emotion when people hear that word. And so I told you I didn't come up with this title on my own. It was our wonderful Kelsey Skaggs, who's in our engagement department. I told her what I wanted to talk about, and she came up with this title. And when I first heard it, I instantly loved it. It gave me several different kinds of emotions: passion, excitement, and fear. Because when we hear the word brave, we have a schema that tells us if we have to be brave, then there must be something to fear. And so for me, what I had to fear was making a presentation that was going to live up to this name. So you're going to have to tell me how I did by the end of this. The other word in this title that I love is fail. And when I think about fail, that also has a lot of emotions. So give me the thumbs up emoji if you've ever failed at something. Go ahead and find those reaction buttons and give me that thumbs up emoji if you've ever failed at something. I see some thumbs up emojis. Yeah, all of us probably have failed at something sometime or other. And just like the word brave, the word fail evokes emotions. It may bring a feeling of frustration, sadness, a feeling of defeat. And none of those emotions feel like I should be using a thumbs up, but I am, because I think a thumbs up is a perfect emoji to represent failure, because failure is not a bad thing. Quitting is. Failing is learning. And I think we can all do a thumbs up to that. So if I go back to my title, which is Too Brave to Fail, I had asked you all to share what that meant to you. And I gave you that Mentimeter and that link. And so I want to take a look now at what some of you said. So we're going to pull this Mentimeter up, cross our fingers that this works. All right, so we see some things up here. Not being able to go after bigger goals due to fear. Failure's not an option. Love that. Fearless. Too proud of yourself to let yourself learn through mistakes. That happens. Yes, willing to do whatever it takes to make sure students are successful. It's for the kids. Keep going no matter what. I love these. You won't give up even if something doesn't work. Try until you no longer fail. Try new things to grow. These are all great. I love these. I love this one. Failure's not an option. We just pivot until we find success. Failing forward. These are awesome. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but these are amazing and exactly what it is when we think about being too brave to fail. And when we think about that, and we think about the classroom, and we think about our students, there are opportunities and there are times when they have to be brave. And so if we think about what brave means, it means to have the strength to face fear or difficulty, having courage, enduring with that courage through something difficult or fearful. And it means taking action even when you're scared. So think about a math classroom. What are some situations that students might find themselves in that may feel difficult or cause fear? Type that into the chat. Some situations, taking a test, new vocabulary, new concept, they don't know the answers, not understanding the questions, being wrong. These are all great. So it happens for students when they have the tests, whether they're time tests, state tests, pop quizzes, unit tests. They also are fearful when they have certain concepts like fractions and algebra. And they're fearful when they have to raise their hand and share their work or come up to the class and talk. Those are all opportunities where students can exhibit fear and they have to stand up and be brave. And so if we think about our students in this manner, and we think about, we've all been there. We know what it's like to stand in front of a group of people doing something you don't feel confident about. It's fearful. And so I'm going to say some statements that might be running through students' minds when they're asked to do a task in class. And if you can relate because you felt this way, or you have students that have felt this way, just give me the thumbs up emoji that I can relate. So students might say, what if I'm wrong? They might say that. They might say, what if someone laughs at me? What if they think I'm stupid? What if they figure out that I don't understand? What if I make a mistake? What if I can't do it? What if I fail? And these are all real, legitimate things that students think. It takes bravery to raise your hand, to share your idea, because you're really providing a window into your understanding. And sometimes to get kids to be able to step out in that bravery involves changing their schemas about who they are and who a math person is. And this is that whole part. We talk a lot about equity and we talk a lot about access. And the important part of equity when it comes to math isn't just like changing names and adding in different kinds of things, but it's about changing a student's relationship with math, the way they think and feel about themselves as a math person. So today, what we're going to talk about is we are going to talk about how to do that with looking at schemas and the moves that we make. So our focus today is going to be on schemas and moves. That's the sort of the overarching thread. We do schemas because, you know, if you've been with us at any kind of time with ST Math, we love talking about schemas. And moves. We're going to talk about 3 different kinds of moves: teacher moves, student moves, and what I'm calling classroom culture moves. And these are really like strategies that you can put in place to promote a classroom environment that will inspire students to step up in bravery, even if they risk failing. And so we're going to talk about that. But first, we have to do a quiz because quizzes are always fun, right? So if we think about schema, does anybody know what schema is? Can you type into the chat what you think schema is? When we talk about schema, what do we mean? Background knowledge, I see that in the chat. What you know from your real life, shared experiences, life experience. Okay, great. So what schemas are really the neural networks that our brains form. It's their way of organizing our thoughts and our experiences. It's like a blueprint. And what happens is every time we have an experience, then our schemas are we either build new schemas, we revise our existing schemas, or we can connect existing schemas together. Our schemas help us understand the world and our place in it. And we have schemas about all kinds of stuff. So we have schemas about music. We have schemas about video games, movies. We have schemas about photography, cooking, gardening, schemas about math, science, history, and schemas about ourselves. Every student in your class has a schema about who they are and who they are as a learner of mathematics. So take a second and type into the chat, what are some schemas that you think your students have about themselves as a learner of mathematics? I can't do math. I'm not a math person. Some kids think they aren't math people. Math is hard. I'm bad at math. My family wasn't good at math. Yes. How many of us have heard that? Parent-teacher conference, a parent comes in, you're talking about math, and they say, no wonder they're not good at math. I was not good at math. And that implies that it's genetic. And so then kids start to think this idea of this math gene really, truly does exist. When it comes to math, many students have this schema about their intelligence and their ability in math being fixed. So we've all heard about fixed mindset, growth mindset, and really this idea that our intelligence, we've already gotten as smart as we can get in math and it's unchangeable. If you've ever had a kid tell you, I used to be good at math until third grade or until fractions or until something, they've got this idea that they have reached their limit of intelligence in math and they can't change that. There was a study done by Peterman and Ewing in 2019, and it found that second grade students that had this kind of mindset, this fixed mindset that they couldn't go any further in math, they suffered from math anxiety. And there was an article that Joe Bowler wrote in 2012 that talked about our personal and our educational consequences for math anxiety. She said in her article that 50% of the US population have some form of math anxiety. And this is, we can see this easily because how many of us know somebody that will proudly say, I'm not a math person? They'll say that because it's part of our culture and our society. And what they found in research is that students as young as 5 years old have this math anxiety. And what that does is it just snowballs and it leads to math difficulties. It makes you avoid doing things, and it only gets worse when they get older, and it's not tied to intelligence at all, but people think it is. So we have this notion that runs around in our culture that there are people who can and people who can't do math. And it starts really early with our kids. And so when we get that, our kids don't feel brave enough to speak up because they don't want to get things wrong, because every wrong thing just reaffirms the fact that I'm not a math person. And so I want to take a little emoji poll here. Now, we've all heard this, I'm not a math person. So we're going to do this little emoji poll here. If you are a former recovering, not a math person, you're going to give me a thumbs up. If you're saying, silly, there's no such thing as a math gene, you're going to give me the laughy face. If you've said this before, or someone has said this to you, you're going to give me the wow face. And then if you have seen ST Math change this for students, you are going to give me that confetti cannon. So I'm going to give you a second. I'm going to be looking at the screen to see what kinds of things I'm getting. So go ahead and do this poll for me, this emoji poll. So find those reaction buttons. And some people are putting the emojis in the chat. That's fine too. Now, while we're doing that, I want you to think about this, because these are the stakes that we're talking about. And everything you're going to learn today is going to give you strategies to help you help your students be brave and create an atmosphere that's going to allow them to see themselves differently and as a math person. So I want you to think about your own class, the class that you had this year, the class that's coming, the classes that you've had in the past, and think about those students that don't feel like math people, and think about how old they were when they stopped believing that they could do math. Think about that for a minute, because this happens to very, very young kids. And so I want to tell you a story about a young girl named Kayla, because these students grow up and they become adults. And it's why we talk about, we have this math crisis in America and this gap we have to fill, and we come up with these programs and ways to fix students, but it doesn't get to the problem. Focusing on a grade or a test or these kinds of things, that just misses the whole point. Because the point is, if we don't change the relationship with math, if we don't help people see themselves in the mathematics, see that they can do math, change their schemas, then we're not really helping the problem very much. We're not moving it far enough down the line, because they have to be able to believe this about themselves. So this is Kayla. When she was in third grade, she developed math anxiety, and she thought math was something for others. She would struggle to keep up, and she would try to be invisible in her math class. She'd lower herself in her chair. She wouldn't speak up. And every day she was afraid. She was afraid to get called on. She was afraid to be embarrassed. She was afraid to fail. When she got put in groups, she was afraid to speak up. And she talks about all of these things. And she did not have the opportunity to see herself in the math. She didn't have the opportunity to be encouraged to fail. There wasn't a culture in her classroom for that. And she's an adult now. And so these struggles follow her because it's not just about a grade. It's about their livelihood and their opportunities and their ability to build wealth. And it's this way because she tells me that when she was an adult, she couldn't even negotiate her benefits. She couldn't negotiate a cell phone contract. She struggled with loans and trying to figure them out. And so there were sometimes she got taken advantage of because she did not have the confidence to approach those situations. Math anxiety and poor math identity, it doesn't just affect the students while they're in school with us. It affects their livelihood and their opportunities. And we have to figure out how to do better. And one of my favorite quotes that I always use when I think about this stuff is from Kofi Annan. And he said, knowledge is power, information is liberating, education is the premise of progress in every society and in every family. And I like this quote because it states what's at stake when we continue down this road of culture of math people and not math people. Knowledge is power, and the students who believe they're not math people don't have access to that power. So we have to change their schemas and we have to change ours as well, because we have to step up and take risks. So bravery is not just for kids, it's for us. We have to take the opportunity to try things and risk failing in front of our students. But failure is learning. And if we model it for them, then they're going to know that it's a good thing. I want to tell you one more story. This is about me. So that's little fuzzy picture back in the day. So you could see I'm pretty old. It's back in the day. During my third year, I had started my teaching career in Louisiana from Ohio originally. And during my third year, I moved back to Ohio and I began teaching third grade at Barrett Middle School. And the students in my class had a schema about math. They're seventh graders. They had all of this time. They believed that math wasn't for them or for anyone that looked like them. For years, they had been called at risk. They've been told they were the furthest behind, the lowest scores in the district, that they were below basic in their proficiency, that they lacked motivation, that they were math haters, and the labels go on. And every label made them feel like there was something wrong with them. There were even charts and graphs that showed in our staff meetings that highlighted their deficits as proof of their failings. And every conversation was about how to fix them. And that is all a deficit mindset. So as a third year teacher in a room full of 12-year-olds with a fear of math, a fear of embarrassment, a fear of trying and failing, I had to figure out a way to help them see themselves differently and how to create an atmosphere where they could feel brave. And I didn't even know about schemas, but that's where you start. You start with schemas, because the thing is that schemas are not things that can't be changed. They're not set in stone. We're constantly in this idea of learning. We're constantly moving. We're constantly either building or connecting or revising our schemas. And so today we're going to talk about revising the schemas that students have about their math identity. And the biggest one is the one we've been talking about. I'm not a math person. That is the biggest one. And so that's the schema we want to revise. We want to change that understanding from I'm not a math person to understanding that math is a human endeavor and we are all math people. The people who are math people are simply people and they do math and that's it. And kids can do math because math is a thinking subject and we all can think. And so the next time students ask who is a math person, hopefully they're going to look around the room and they're going to see themselves. And the way we get there is by changing the way we talk and think and use mathematics. And so if we think about diversity, equity, and inclusion and its place in mathematics, we need to think about who can do math. Who do we say are the doers in math? So we have to diversify that. Who does math and what does it look like to do math? Think of all those things that your kids do on a regular basis that's doing math that they don't even know. One of my favorite examples that I like to give, so if you've heard me talk before, you've heard this, those little fortune teller paper fold things that kids make and they love, that's fractions. They're doing math. And kids do these kinds of things on a daily basis. The kid that beatboxes or drums on his desk, that's keeping time in fractions. They're doing math. So we have to diversify what it looks like and show them that people that look like them do math. We have to bring equity into what it means to know and contribute to math. Right now, kids are under this idea that only people who have the right answer can contribute to math. And that's just not true. We can all contribute our thoughts and our ideas to math. And so we have to help them understand that there's math that they know. They might not know the math that they're working on at the moment, but there's math that they know that can be used to help them learn the math they're trying to get at. So we have to bring equity in what it means to know and contribute to math. And then inclusion. Who are the math powerhouses? My kids at Barrett Middle School, one of the things they told me was, Chris is the one who can do math. They all had taken all of the work of math and put it on this one child. And that was the math powerhouse because they didn't see themselves that way. And so we have to bring inclusion and help them see who are the sense makers of math. And we do that by including various ways students think about math, the strategies they use to help make sense of math. And we have to help them see that they are in fact powerhouses in mathematics. And so these are the things, this is the way that we get there, is we diversify it. We bring equity to who can do it, and we bring inclusion by getting all the voices of the students in the room and giving them the opportunity to share and show what they know. Now, how do we know that, that this is important? Because there's a lot of scientific evidence that says the difference between people who succeed and don't is not their brains they're born with. So this idea of you're born with the math gene is out the window. And we all know that. We know that that's not true anyway. But it's all about the approach to life and the messages students receive about their potential. So if every message is from a deficit lens, then you're going to think you don't have any potential. That's what my kids at Barrett felt like. And then what are the opportunities they have to learn? They don't feel like they can take opportunities. They don't feel like they can share their ideas because in the back of their head, it's what if I'm wrong? And so we have to change the messages that we give students. We have to speak to their potential, and we have to call out these opportunities to learn. The other thing that we know from research, the National Mathematics Panel Advisory Committee, they found that when students believe their efforts to learn make them smarter, they will show greater persistence in mathematics learning. We want our kids to persevere. We want them to struggle productively, but they have to understand and believe that that struggle, that perseverance is going to help them and make them learn. And so we have to set up experiences that show that to them. Because if they believe that, they're going to show that persistence. So the two things we know, language and opportunities, play a big role in student success with math. So let's start by looking at language first. The language we use adds and subtracts value. So we have to be mindful of what we're saying. The language that's used to describe our students, our teachers, our families, and our communities, it affects how we view them and how they view themselves. I'm sure sometime in our careers, we've had somebody say to us, let me tell you about this student, or let me tell you about this family. And sometimes it's coming from a deficit lens. We need to speak about it from an asset-based lens, because the narratives that get used in the world, they send powerful messages to students about their values, about what they're capable of, about their identity, and about their potential. And the language we use in our classrooms empowers and informs others how to view our students and families. If we give feedback that says, oh, you're so smart, then students tie their identity to being smart. We can't do that to kids. We need to talk about what a great mathematical thinking idea you just gave. Like, be specific in the language that we use so they don't feel like if I don't get an A or if I'm not showing that I'm smart, then my identity has taken a hit. So we have to be careful about the language that we use. The last thing I'll say about language, and this hits home because we've all probably when we were little sung that song, "Sticks and stones may break my bones," and names will never hurt me, but names and labels and language does hurt. Like, I mean, people go to therapy because that stuff does hurt. And so the language we use helps create reality. And so always keeping in mind this language that we use, and it's creating a reality. So let's call it like we want to see it. Let's call it by the potential that we see. And that gets us to this asset-based approach idea. So identifying student strengths and then using those to build on. Is this student a good communicator? I used to have this student in my class that would just, I don't know, make announcements. We'd be sitting doing something and all of a sudden he'd make an announcement. And I'm sure you guys probably have some kids like that, have had that in your career, that they just all of a sudden just start talking. And so finding that as a strength and then teaching him how to use his communication abilities in a more productive way, doesn't look at it from a deficit lens, but it's looking at it from an asset-based lens, focusing on the fact that he's a good communicator. And so by doing this and using language in this way, we're helping to cultivate students' attitudes about their abilities, their dignity, their capacities, their identity, their capabilities, and their uniqueness. And this is powerful, and it's also life-changing. And I can tell you, when I think back to my students that I had in that 7th grade class, one of the big things I did was I pulled on their potential. They had been told for years about all the things that were wrong with them, that I started telling them all the things that were right with them. And one of the things that I did was I started a mathlete group. And I can't even tell you the comments I got when I said I was going to start a mathlete group. But I did, and the kids were so proud. I wanted them to understand that they were math people and that they could do rigorous math. This was the first ever mathlete team at the school. Did we win a lot of stuff? No. But did we win a lot of stuff? Yes. We didn't win the competitions, but we won in the fact that the students felt empowered. They felt like they could do it. They learned that their thinking was important, whether it was right or wrong. Because that's the thing, kids get in this idea that it's only my right thinking that matters, but right or wrong, you learn from both. And so they learn that their ideas were important, and the students who looked like them, who lived where they lived, who struggled like they did, could be great math thinkers. And out of this class, we had so many first-year college students out of this class because experiences like this can stay with kids. And so when we pull on their potential, we not only affect them, but we can affect their future. And that's what we really need to do. So we have to change their schemas. So I want to show you another schema. So that was an I'm a math person. We're changing that to math is a human endeavor. Everybody's a math person. Another schema is learning happens to me. I went to a training once and somebody shared this poem, and I like to share it every now and then. School is a place where young people go to watch old people work and are graded on how well they watch. And that's how some students feel about school. They're just waiting. What do you want me to say, teacher? What's the answer? What do you want me to do? Show me. They're just waiting because learning happens to them. And that's not the way learning works. So we should be revising this schema to, I'm an active participant in my learning. I can think through challenges and my thinking is important. This is what we need to get students to feel like. And this is what we do here at Mind. one of the things that we ask ourselves is, can a game change how you feel about math? That's our thing. That's what we say. Can a game change how you feel about math? And it's not just the game, it's the culture that comes with the game. It's the opportunities that are embedded in the game. That's what makes it. It's the moves in the game. And so I want to talk about moves, because I said I was going to focus on schema and moves, and I've just been focusing on schema. So we're going to get to some moves. So I'm going to talk about 3 different kinds of moves. A teacher move. One thing we can do to help students understand that learning isn't something that's done to them, but it's something they're an active participant in, is we can position them as authors of their own learning. That's what we can do. And the student moves are then to be curious, to take risks, to try and try again. And then the classroom culture move is to create opportunities that encourage failure. Yes, we want to encourage failure. We want kids to understand that failure is not a stopping point. It's not a period at the end of the sentence. Failure is part of the learning process. And in the failure, you're finding things, you're discovering things. And so we want to encourage that they try something, even if they're not sure, even if they're scared, try, and failing is okay. So we're going to try something. We're going to play a game called Big Seed. I love this game. If you love this game too, give me a confetti cannon if you love this game. If you don't love this game, give me that, I don't know if there's a sad face emoji, but some people don't love this game, but I love this game. So I'm going to put, you can scan the QR code, but I'm also going to put a link in the chat. So there's a link in the chat that will take you to the game. And I'm really not going to give you a whole lot of time because I see that I'm running out of time. So I'm not going to give you a whole lot of time right now, but probably 30 seconds, and then we're going to play a game together. So we're going to play a game together here in a minute. All right. So that was a Miss Young minute because it wasn't real. But we're going to try to play a game together. So I'm going to ask for some people to be brave. And show me what they think. Tell me what they think they would like to do for this puzzle. And you can type it into the chat, what you think should happen with this puzzle. What you'd like to see me try to do. Do we have anybody brave enough to unmute?
I can do this one.
All right. And can you say your name, please?
This is Karen Locke. I'm from Temecula, California.
Hi, Karen. Thank you for playing with us with this game. Tell us what you'd like to do.
Well, I would move the pink one down.
Like this?
Yep. And then the yellow one would be diagonal down.
Okay.
And then I would change the color of the yellow to pink,
Okay.
or whichever one you want to color. And then I'd flip that one up.
All right. Good job. Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
All right, let's try one more. Tell me what you see here that is, what do you see here in this puzzle? Karen got us started. She was brave. She stepped out on the gate. So who else wants to share? Like, what do you see in the puzzle? You can type it into the chat. What you see in this puzzle. Now, if we were in a classroom, I would have asked Karen lots and lots of questions about how she was figuring that out. 3 colors. Okay. Anybody see anything?
It's also about symmetry.
Symmetry. Okay. All right, so somebody tell me what you want me to do. Be brave like Karen. And type into the chat what you think you want me to do. So somebody said, go pink up diagonal. And then flip. So Andy, I don't know if you want to unmute since you've been brave to share with us. Do you feel okay to unmute, Andy? All right, let's try what Andy said. Andy said, go up. Oh, wait, go up diagonal and then flip. Not sure where you want me to flip.
Diagonal the other way. Diagonal to the left.
You want me to go here?
And then flip the pink down.
Got it. All right. What else would you do?
Yellow down.
Yellow down.
And the yellow goes to the last 2 spots.
And flip the yellow. You guys are so good at this. I don't know why people are nervous. All right, we're not going to do the last one because I don't have enough time, but definitely play this last one because it is a lot of fun. So students play this game and students get stuck. Some of you said that when you were typing into the chat, the students get stuck on this game. This is one of our challenge games. And so one of the things that's great about this game, even though we didn't do it, we didn't demonstrate it, but this game gives you the freedom to fail. Because when we fail, we learn something. And then when we learn something, we can move on. And so that's what this game gives us a chance to do. And so that's what we see a lot with ST Math. I want to share with you this journal that a student shared with a principal sent to me from one of his students. And they were saying, I love math because math is life. It is one of the only places I can go and feel like I'm a king. And this is from a school, a charter school in New York that has a high Title I population where students are told the same things that my students, like that's the same idea, at-risk students and all of that. And they love math because they've understood and realized that they're math people. And so we want all kids to be able to feel like this. And so my question to you is, why do you think students feel like they have the freedom to fail with ST Math? And do they bring that same freedom and risk-taking into the classroom? Has anybody ever heard of the Super Mario effect? So the Super Mario effect is this idea that you know what your ultimate goal is. It's to save the princess. And because your goal is to save the princess, you don't mind the pits. And that's the same thing that happens with ST Math. I see some comments in the chat because they can try it again, because they help students accept failure and not giving up because it's individual, because they understand that figuring things out is part of the process. Daniela, that is so pivotal. Figuring things out is part of the process. That's something that all of our students need to understand and need to know. And so this idea of the Super Mario effect is that it's that they know they're going to fall in the pit, but they're going to figure their way out. So it doesn't matter if they fall in 2 times, 10 times, they know they're going to figure their way out because they're on a quest to save the princess. One of my teachers that I work with, she used to say that her students loved ST Math because it was a quest and not a test, that it felt like a quest and not a test. So if you get a chance, there is, I think Mark Rober's the one who came up with Super Mario effect, and there's a TED talk on it. It is a really great talk, and it talks about how failure becomes part of your process of learning with the full expectation that you're going to improve until you master where you are. and then get to the next level. And so that's such an important key message for our students to receive. And so I encourage you to check that out. That's one of the big things that STMath does for kids as well. And we can transfer that into the classroom. And so some of the ways is by changing our schema about the purpose of math. Some students believe the purpose of math is to get the right answer, and that the right answer is what's most important. It is important, like getting the right answer in math is super important, but it's not the only thing. Phil Darrow has a talk that he does, and this is also on YouTube. It's a good talk. It's about once the answer's out of the way, the mathematics can begin. And he talks about the understanding of the why and how important it is for students to really know what it is that they're doing, not just, and why it is, not just the answer, but the why and the how, so they can do it again. And that not only can they do it again, but they can do it in new and novel situations. Our kids sometimes get so used to mimicking or giving us exactly what we want that when we change things even slightly, we see hands go up in the air. How many of you have ever given direction, given an assignment, and before you finish your last sentence, there are hands in the air? Does that happen to anybody? I see some smiles on some faces. It happens. And then when you ask them, what do you need help with? And they'll say, they might say, I don't get it. And what do you say? What don't you get? And they'll say, everything. Anybody have kids that do that? Because they're wanting, like, what do you want from me? What do you want me to do? And it's that single focus on the answer. And so we want to revise that schema to be thinking about developing strategies and ways of thinking about math, understanding the how and the why of math, and not just the what. And one of the really powerful ways to do this are through some things I call thinking routines. And I'm going to show you those in a second. So one of the other moves to get here is to be a facilitator of student thinking. So that's the teacher move, to be a facilitator of student thinking. The student move is to share, analyze, evaluate, and communicate their thinking. And then the strategy is to use strategies that make thinking visible. So coming up with those things that you can do in your classroom that's going to make thinking visible. So one of those things is the problem solving process that we use with STMath. That's one of those things that you can use. The teacher moves are getting them to notice and wonder, and then getting to go through this cycle of predicting and justifying and testing and observing and analyzing and learning, and then connecting and extending. But there's also a student move embedded in that. They're telling you, I see this, I think this, I try this, I learn this, and I might have to think and try and learn over and over and over again, but I'm gonna get it. And then I know this. This is the language that gives students the ability to communicate their thinking so that they can tell you where they are. And this problem solving process works with STMath. It works outside of STMath. You can use it for all kinds of things that you're doing. And so this is a tool that you can take to facilitate student thinking, and then to encourage students to communicate and analyze and evaluate their own thinking. So this is a strategy to make that thinking visible. Another great resource is this article called Never Say Anything a Kid Can Say. If you've read this, give me a thumbs up. It's a really good article. I've used it for a long time. Came out in, I think, 2000 maybe. I can't remember exactly when it came out. I just put a bit.ly link for this in case you don't have your phone to this article. But this is a great article, and it's written by a teacher about his experience. And he has 5 things that he talks about. One is never say anything a kid could say. I used to drive my kids crazy because I wouldn't answer their questions. I would just ask them more questions because it was about getting them to think and to say. And so we want to ask good questions, and we want to use more process questions than product questions. We want to be able to talk to them about what it is that they're thinking and what it is that they're doing, and have them replace lectures with sets of questions. So it's not us doing all the thinking, but it's the student as well. And we want to be able to be patient and have that wait time and not run to rescue, but to give them a chance to talk and to think and to share. And so if we're really going to help kids be brave, then we have to not talk for them. And we have to create these atmospheres in these spaces where they can step in and be brave, because we have these culture of opportunities to fail and be okay, and to share thinking and discuss. And we're asking them questions about what it is to help them think about the process that they went through, not just the right answer that they got. And this is the work that we have to do. And so I'm going to ask you about that BHAG. I'm going to come back to that BHAG. And I'm going to ask you, what is it you're going to take into 2022, 2023 with you for your students? What is it you're going to do? What is it you're going to change? What is it you're going to encourage so that your kids will be too brave to fail? Thank you very much.